Hello, friends. Welcome back to another edition of the PCS Podcast, the Pokemon podcast built by the community for the community. I'm one of your co hosts, Aaron, and alongside me tonight is my friend and co host, Drew. We're actually very thrilled to welcome a special guest host this evening who knows all about Day 2 runs at Worlds, Pablo Meza. Pablo, thank you for taking time to join us on the pod tonight. First off, could you introduce yourself for those that maybe don't know you, and just give a little bit of historical background for your presence, in the game, as you've been here for a member of the community a very long time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words. Thanks so much for having me as well. I've been a long time member of this community. I started playing right when official tournaments started with Pokemon, right? I didn't play during Wizards of the Coast. There weren't many tournaments in Mexico anyways. But I've been playing every year, every circuit. There has been some years more off than on. More on than off. There's been off years as well because of college, because of work and whatnot. But right now I've been doing full-time Tablemon for 8 years now. The channel started 10 years ago, actually, almost to the date. So it's like the 10-year anniversary of Tablemon, 8 years full-time. I do content, I do coaching, I play a lot of Pokemon, I travel a lot for Pokemon, and in the recent years, Pokemon got me on the casting team as well, so I've been juggling the competitive plus casting as well, which definitely has not been easy in terms of I've been casting so much that even finding tournaments to be able to attend to try to qualify for Worlds has been a bit of a challenge, especially with the new system of Top X. But we got there this year, which was very, very rewarding since it's supposed to be the hardest, right, out of the past few seasons. So pretty happy with that. And I plan on keeping this up as long as my brain allows and as long as my schedule allows to keep traveling and competing at the same time.
Yeah, well, we definitely are thrilled to have you here to share your insight and wisdom. I am glad that obviously you're competing at Worlds this year, and obviously we'll have a little bit more of a formal interview and just ask you how the heck do you do it and find enough time. Drew and I both have younger kids, so we know that it's always time crunch, but obviously you have many different obligations to go through. But I am glad, and if anything, I'm kind of glad to have you on before the official 10-year anniversary of Tablemon. So make sure to search that on YouTube and or all social platforms to make sure to give Pablo a follow. So if you are ready, Drew, I hope you're doing well. Obviously, we'll hear more of your voice here a little bit later. But Pablo, we do have some quick shooting questions that we like to ask first time guest of the show. I kind of joke and say you can answer as quickly as I don't do a timer or anything, but you can answer them as quickly as you want. Or if you're Gazer Beam, he definitely took like 2 to 3 minutes to answer on some of these. He would think for a very long time. So, however you like to do, if you're ready for that, I'll fire some questions your way.
Go for it.
Right, perfect. Favorite color sleeves?
Ivory from Dragon Shield. That's the color. Like Pearl, Ivory, those are my favorite.
Yeah. All right. What's your favorite Pokemon from like Gens 1 through 5?
Nidoqueen.
What's your favorite from Gen 6 through 9?
Greninja.
Nice. What's been your favorite format you've competed in?
Oof. I'm completely biased towards Worlds 2005 format.
There's a reason. We'll get to that in a little bit later for those that might not know the historical content of that answer. What's been your favorite card art that you've seen over 20 years of playing?
Oof, that's a tough one. There's so many good, but especially it feels like the last few years the art has gone crazy. I really like the Suicune from the Crown Zenith set. That one I pulled randomly from packs, and I really like that art, and Suicune in general is one of my favorites, so that one would probably be like the first standout one.
Yeah, I also pulled that one and got lucky enough, and the Raikou as well. I did not get I did not get Entei, but I do have those two. What's the first competitive deck that you remember playing when you started to pick up the game?
I mean, the very first deck I won a tournament with was an expedition for alligator featuring memory berry, metal energy, gold berry, and a rage totodile to take advantage of the damage on for alligators. So like this is like before Ruby and Sapphire. This is
Oh wow.
yeah. So that was
Okay.
like the first tournament I won that kickstarted everything in my life basically.
Okay.
Was like in 2001 or something, and that was the first deck that I fell in love with because I won the tournament. Yeah.
I'm gonna put a circle back on this because I want you to explain what the deck did. What's the favorite deck that you've maybe ever played?
Nidoqueen
Yeah,
for 2005. I get emotionally attached to the decks I do well with.
beautiful. Yeah, yeah. Probably like a lot of us. Decks that you're very
Mhm.
fond of. Is Charizard actually a dragon?
No,
Right answer. Favorite evolution?
Leafeon.
Really?
How long? Yeah, truce, truce. Yeah.
I
How long did?
would have thought it would have been Sylveon for TCG flavored
And
reasons, but
it makes sense for TCG reasons.
yeah,
I just like I have fond memories of playing Diamond and Pearl, and I
Yeah,
chanced into because I was playing it in Japanese. I chanced into a Leafeon evolution. I was very surprised, and I loved it.
yeah, no,
perfect.
can't blame you.
Yeah. How long did it take you to find the exact 60 for your Lost Box Rayquaza Raikou deck?
uh, Probably like a week. I had a very good uh base to go off of from online tournaments, and also I forget the name of the Adam Hawkins who played at LAIC.
Hmm.
I casted his game. I loved how it played out. I had already had the deck on my radar, and I just worked off of that. Yeah.
Okay. There's reasons why I asked that one. I'll answer. We'll get into
Mhm.
that one a little bit later.
Yeah.
Do you have any superstitions when you're playing the TCG?
I mean, if I try to sit on the same side of the table, like if I won, or I try to sit on the opposite side of the table if I lost, like that on round one. If I lost round one, I sit on the opposite side of the table. If I won round one, I try to sit on the same side of the table.
Yeah, I coincidentally picked that up for some of the events that I played in. It was like, all right, I'm gonna flip it or keep it this side and try to get to the table number as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Two more questions here. If you were a gym leader, either in the TCG or the video game, what would like your type, your archetype be? And then would you have a specific gimmick? So if you're doing a video game esque, would you do Terra or Mega or something? Or if it's TCG, what sort of gimmick would you have in your archetype?
So very recently I thought about like branding a lot towards poison type Pokemon. I know I have a certain reputation of being a little bit toxic, a little bit like a sore loser, which is completely understandable. I'm definitely I have a hard time keeping my emotions in check many times. It's never personal. I just
Yeah.
don't like losing. I really hate losing. It's part of what drives me. And so I feel like if I were a gym leader today at 37 years old, I would be like a toxic, poison type, dark type gym leader, which also goes along with Nidoqueen as well. So
Yeah,
that would be
makes a lot of
my
sense.
theme.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe there's a mega Nidoqueen coming in
Hopefully, yeah,
Pokemon Z. Yeah, yeah. Who
even
knows?
something.
Yeah, hopefully it'd be cool. It'd be I've very much like both of the Nido lines, but
Yeah,
that would be really cool to give homage to some just really cool Pokemon. Right? Those are actually like monsters.
yeah.
That they created back in the day. Last question here, kind of a loaded one here. So if you were named like a TPCI named like a TCG commissioner, and you were named that for a day, what would you change about the game or circuit? Just anything, knowing for how much experience that you've had in the competitive circuit. What would be like the number one thing first on your agenda? Like this is what I want to change because it's going to be better for the player base. What are your thoughts?
60-minute rounds instead of 50 minutes. 50 minutes is nowhere near enough time to complete 3 full games. And like this comes from, I feel like the people who make a lot of the decisions have never
Mm-hmm.
played in that competitive environment, and therefore are not fully aware of what it takes to fully compete. And
Yeah,
so 60 minutes, I think, would fix a lot of things with ties, with being able to finish games and being able to like actually play the game. Yeah. And
yeah.
number two would be look at your prizes during setup and then reshuffle. those two
Yeah,
things would be my top two priorities to get ingrained into the competitive circuit.
yeah. Your last answer is what we after obviously the recent news at the beginning of the month of the
Yeah.
change for +1 and a 10-minute, which still feels a little bit hollow of exactly how it's going to be implemented because I think we don't have to get into that, but I'd say like we can gain 2 to 3 minutes right away, particularly on the stream games, right? Because we know that those have a historically very high tie rate and they never finish. Just because it's a different element. I've never been on stream, but I can imagine, right? You have white noise being pumped in, and obviously people are watching you. But that was what I said. Is like, hey, if we can just look at our prizes, shuffle them up, and put them out, like we've gained a couple minutes on the clock, particularly with only the +1. So, Drew, do you have any follow-ups to any of Pablo's answers before I ask him about his first competitive deck? Just because I have no idea what it does, but I'm very curious.
Yeah. What's Tablemon?
So my last name is Mesa, which in English is table,
Mhm.
plus Pokemon, Tablemon. That's
Perfect.
the like I thought that was the most obvious thing in the world, but like a lot of it's the number one question I've had since I started Tablemon for the last 10 years because many people who speak English don't realize that my last name would be table in Spanish, and many people who only speak Spanish or don't immediately make the connection. So that's been the number one question I've had since I started Table, and I thought it was the most obvious thing in the world.
Obviously not, because I was
But
like
yeah,
this
no,
whole time, obviously not bilingual. But yeah, I just wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Talk to me about the expedition. You said for alligator, right?
yeah.
From that. So just explain to me kind of like the mechanic of the deck and what
So
your
it
object was.
its ability or poke power back then was essentially escape rope.
Oh,
So there weren't ghost effects at that point in time or in that format that I played in. So having um, having a way to disrupt your opponent's active Pokemon was actually pretty impactful. And then it had 120 HP, which was pretty tanky at the time,
Yeah.
which sounds very dumb in 2025, but that was very, very tanky back then. Um, there was Gold Berry, which healed 40 damage in between turns if you had the damage on you. So that's like healing 33% of your HP when attacks are doing 50 or 60 damage. That was very impactful. Metal Energy, it was special energy back then. There was no basic metal energy. And
Okay.
if it was attached to to a Pokemon, you reduced, I think it's 20 damage from any attack. So like attacks averaged 50 to 70 damage. And then you were using 20 on top of that. And then you were healing a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was super tanky. There were the baby Pokemon as well with the baby rule, where if you wanted to attack the baby Pokemon, you had to flip a coin. If it was tails, your attack was
Oh yeah.
nullified. So you had Cleffa and Elekid and Magby and all of those Pokemon to set up behind to get 4 energies to attack with for Alligator. And then you had its attack did, I think it was 4 energies for 40 damage. And then, but if there were damage counters already on the Pokemon, it was 70.
Okay.
So it was like a very slow and steady wins the game. And then if at any point they built up enough damage on the for alligator, then you had Memory Berry to copy the Neo Genesis Totodale's Rage Attack, which let you do massive damage. Like you could do 120 damage in one attack, which was unheard of outside of fire type decks. And you had advantage over the fire type decks because of weakness. So
Yeah.
it was like a very cohesive deck. It was very defensive. And I've always liked those sort of decks. It lead like defensive and slow playing decks lead to long games, which lead to a lot of decision making. And I think that's where getting a lot of the small decisions right is what separates me from the average players, which might not get a lot of the small decisions right, or might not maximize their resources, and therefore that's how I build advantage from
Okay.
most players. Yeah,
I get it. So yeah, like a modern day kind of a tank and heal type of deck,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Reducing
It was very
damage,
defensive. Yeah,
healing, and then but still capable of dealing out, obviously
yeah,
dishing out some damage if they were to get it going. All right.
yeah.
Well, thank you for taking just one for educating me because a lot of
Yeah,
those
you're
cards
welcome.
I've never got to play with. So, we'll kind of shift into some more interview questions here. So first, obviously you've been a player and still are a player, obviously, as you're competing at Worlds here in a couple of weeks, which wish you nothing but best of luck. Talk about kind of that journey from being so centralized into coaching and playing, and now transitioning, because obviously you do attend quite a few events for TPCI on the broadcasting side of things. Talk about the journey into that, and I guess maybe what's kind of like your favorite thing about casting, even though you wish you were playing sometimes, but your favorite part about casting.
So in terms of like the journey, it happened out of like Twitter DMs. I asked like if I mentioned to the person who I knew was in charge, hey, if there's ever an opportunity, I'm interested, right?
Oh, cool.
And I later learned that they had already considered me. They already had me on their like list of potential candidates for that. And then once I expressed that interest, and based on like my good standing with TPCI, my channel, my like my career, right? That led them to. I don't know for certain, but like my first event was LAIC in the year 2022 for the Yokohama season, and it was over Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure a lot of the casters were probably not available or not wanting to go to Brazil, being it such an important holiday in America. And therefore, that opened up the opportunity for me, and that kick-started everything. I don't know for certain, but I'm guessing that had something to do with it. But I know they already had like thought about me for different opportunities or perhaps for
Cool.
the future. Yeah, but maybe that got things a little bit gave me a little bit of a head start for that.
Yeah. And that was the Lugia year, right?
Yeah,
Because that
yeah,
was
that
after
was the
Silver
first
Tempest.
Lugia
So
tournament. Yeah,
yeah. So a lot of Lugia wars. I still don't know how Sander Wojcik didn't win. I
yeah,
would have loved
agreed.
to see, of course, Tord and him battle it out, but I know they're on the side table. It's hard, to get a general player base to understand what goes through Sander Wojcik's head for his decks. But once you figure out the loop, it's actually once you actually understand the cards, it's actually pretty cool. So,
What do
Drew,
you
do
like
you,
better?
yeah.
Do you like playing or broadcasting better?
So I've definitely found like before I started casting, I didn't realize everything that it took to be a good caster, right? And pardon if you hear the dog, my house is filled with them.
We got
um,
extra guests tonight. It's fine.
okay.
Yeah.
So so I definitely didn't realize, and now that I've been so involved and whatnot, it's definitely grown a lot on me. At first, I wasn't sure I was gonna enjoy it because I love playing so much and I'm so competitive. But also, I have been playing for so long. I'm no longer 25 years old, right? Traveling the world for Pokemon. I've already done that as well, right? I feel like I was one of the first to be able to do that competitively from Mexico and whatnot. So I like them both. I probably like playing a little bit more. However, like I said, I am now 37 years old and I do have to make decisions based on many more things and many more responsibilities than just my love of playing, right? So
Yeah.
Right.
I love casting as well. I really enjoy it. There are many times where I wish I was the one playing at the table in top four instead of being the caster. But I love it, and the people I work with and all the effort that they put into is outstanding. Like a lot goes on that people are so unaware of that like I definitely anytime I was critical of anything behind the scenes, like now that I'm involved and behind the scenes, it's like it's a whole world back there.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into production,
Yeah,
particularly with the casters and the team that'll be involved at Worlds, right? Because
Yeah.
you're from the ground floor, and it's obviously the most amount of eyes that you have on the scene. So, I do want to talk about, obviously, given your location, is talk about the growing scene in Latin America, particularly with what they showcased for the schedule. For this upcoming season, just how many regionals will actually be taking place in Latin America. Just talk about the local scene there and how obviously there's some very good players involved as well too, like yourself. But just talk about the scene there. Is it growing in popularity like it is everywhere else? It seems like in the world on the TCG
yeah.
side of things.
I mean, definitely Latin America. The fact that last season and this season we now have like a full schedule, full year of events, one event per month.
Yeah,
That's been fantastic. That's also been very motivating for many players, specifically in Mexico. Like just seeing how like 60 people will show up for a Friday night league right? Not even a challenge or a cup, like
Just
local league
yeah, yeah,
players, right? So like I saw this, and there's like stores all over the country and whatnot. That even prompted me to restart my Spanish content, which I had left on the side because I didn't think it was worth it. Now I'm fully committed to Spanish content, going 50-50 with English. And then in general, Latin America, that's also been the case. Yeah. Mexico
okay, yeah,
seems to be the driver right now. The TPCI started an official headquarter here. There's been a lot of focus on Mexico, I think, driven through sales, right? Also
yeah,
because we're a pretty big country compared to other countries in Latin America. But yeah, like this is happening all over Latin America. I get so many messages from people on my YouTube channel, on all my social spaces about how nice it is to have a Latin American in the casting team and representing or not. Yeah, so like the scene has definitely exploded after the pandemic. I mean, Pokemon exploded everywhere, right?
yeah, yeah,
But in Latin America, it's definitely been growing so much. It's amazing to see. It's getting more competitive. Everyone's like really taking it a lot more seriously than I've ever seen before. Like before, I was the only player from like I was one of the 5 players from Latin America traveling to other regions,
sure,
and I was the one player from Mexico traveling to events outside of Mexico. Yeah, and
Right.
now we finally had another Mexican player top cut a regional outside of Mexico. We have Mexican players traveling. Like I think there's many more players traveling a lot more than I am, and I
yeah.
travel a lot. So it's really amazing to see, and from all over the world, from all over. Yeah,
And nothing continues the drive of actually having regionals that are more closer to home, but obviously that certainly helps. But it is fantastic to see, and like I said, I knew they had opened up a base there, just nothing really has come of it, quite yet. But obviously there's intentions of why they actually open up
yeah,
a headquarters in Mexico, so there's probably something in the works that we don't quite know about, but I'm excited for you.
yeah. I'm excited for the future of LATAM and competitive. Yeah.
Okay,
We saw. Oh yeah,
sorry. Last year we saw a world shift from nearly a 2 tournament structure, splitting day 1 and day 2 into different competitions. In a traditional tournament with Swiss or Top Cut, um, what does that do for metagaming and deck selection? Do you focus on more consistency or not as much text? Or
So I definitely think there should be a big shift towards consistency. Perhaps not as much as regionals or internationals, because Worlds is a very unique tournament where, in theory, your edge versus someone else should be like the difference between one player and their opponent in skill should be the lowest, right? Compared to an average opponent at a regional or at an international. So if skill is the same or almost the same, then a lot of things that will determine the outcome of the game will be the deck choice, right? The matchup itself, if one deck is naturally advantaged over the other, luck of the draw, which we cannot control, or specific tech cards. So it's definitely a balance. I think with the day 1 and day 2 being completely different tournaments, that would have led to a lot more like, because it's a much smaller field, a much more concentrated field of top players, then you can go riskier because it's more likely to pay off, right? It's go big or go home. And we see that every year with many players who like to innovate and whatnot. But now that the field is going to be probably over 800 players, maybe more, then that means like despite like whatever surprise you might have or tech or whatnot, like the field is so much wider in terms of deck selection, in terms of just many factors, right? So that's where you want to reduce variance as much as possible. And how do you reduce variance? By having your deck do the same thing over and over as many times as possible, right? So there has to be a balance. It's definitely an interesting one, and it's different from past seasons. I didn't get to play last year's Worlds because I casted, but I am playing in this one, which last year didn't feature the harder to qualify format, but it did feature this now day 1 into
more of
day
like a
2. Right?
Swiss,
So
yeah, like a traditional tournament.
yeah, so I think the learnings from last year are probably not applicable 1-to-1 to the preparation that you would need to do this year. But I do feel like Worlds is the tournament where you want to go big or go home, because your differential in terms of I'm very likely to make very good decisions whilst I'm playing. And if I'm playing round one against Azul, right, which the odds of that happening are much higher than at a regional or international, he's going to be making a lot of very good decisions, right? So if I can give myself a deck advantage just based on the matchup, I will definitely take that, right?
Okay. Yeah, I
So,
see.
or whether it's the matchup or whether it's a specific tech for a specific matchup, right? So there's definitely value to it, but you don't want to overdo it because there's just so much variety and we know very little of like we know the Asian metagame based on Japan results, but we don't know a lot about South Korea. We don't know about Singapore. We don't know a lot about China. They're playing different format, but they're going to be at Worlds with our format. So it's like there's definitely uniqueness and nuances to all of that to be careful, but don't be too careful where you don't have the right card at the right time to win that one game, which could lead you to becoming a world champion or not. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's definitely a very fine balance. Yeah.
No, I love the depth of your answer. And if that doesn't get the listeners or people that watch the video side of things geared up for Worlds in a couple weeks, I don't know. You're listening to the wrong podcast, that's for sure. One last question before we pepper you with so many different Worlds questions because there's just so many decks. It feels like the
Yeah.
format's very wide. There's obviously very top of the top line of things, but just with that many number of decks, it just does really feel like a strong meta, call for the Worlds tournament. So I have to go back. One of my favorite decks, I started playing at the beginning of 2022, and your Lost Box for Kureza and Raikou deck was something that, as soon as I picked up and just started playing it, one of my favorite decks.
Mhm.
How broken would that deck be given like Night Stretcher in format now, Buddy Buddy Poffin? So like, even though yes, VIP pass was very good, but obviously it was a very easy decision. Just with some of the cards in rotation now, just do you feel like that would take that deck even up the next level because you're ultimately again a single prize attacking that can take out three
Yeah.
prizes at that time with Rayquaza, being able to take out Duraludon VMAX of all things. So how broken would that deck be in a little with sprinkle of some cards from this format?
I think it would definitely be pretty insane. Like anytime you have a 2-for-1 price trade off, right? Like that's what Typhlosion wants to be because
Mhm.
it's at stage 2, it just doesn't do it as effectively or it does it too late. But yeah, Rayquaza being a basic, the axes you get. I mean, we saw Lost. I'm pretty sure we saw Lost Box with Puffin available, right? So like
Mm.
having
Yes, we did. Yeah.
with the attackers that are Raikou and Rayquaza, it would be absolutely insane. Yeah, and like
Yeah.
even without Night Stretcher, like any combination of Night Stretcher plus Super Rod would also be outstanding. So yeah, it would definitely be pretty broken. I feel.
Yeah. What A spec would you even play with it?
I would say Prime Catcher. Like
Okay, makes sense.
back when I like with the games that I played with that deck, like you always struggled to like send your boss to the lost zone or whatnot. Like escape rope is super good, but many games you just needed that ghosting effect to close out a game, right? And the fact that
Yeah,
you could call risk and prime catcher in a turn would just completely break Rayquaza for sure.
that's sweet. Yeah, for those that don't know, just search that deck up. It is a cool 60.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll have something in our Discord where we just go back and play maybe some old Sword and Shield
Oh,
format,
please
which
no. Oh,
which
please
I
don't put
don't
me
know
through
how
that.
many partakers we would get, but it'd be interesting because we have a lot of new players. So with Worlds coming up here, it's just literally right around the corner, coming up about 2 weeks now. Um, what are your initial thoughts with the Black Bolt White Flare cards? Is there really much meta shakeup, or is it really more so like your Hildas, your Air Balloons? Obviously, is a very strong card. Is it more so just kind of giving maybe a facelift to some archetypes that we already know? Just what are your initial thoughts in these early days that we've been in this format?
Yeah, I think it's more of a facelift as you mentioned. Golden Go gets a lot more consistent and a lot more mobile. I think is the right word. Like Herballoon's definitely a big addition to that. Even like I want to say even more so than Genesect, just because like stalling against Golden Go becomes almost a non-issue, and you gain like you can play 4 Herballoons, which are already very good to give you mobility, and synergizes perfectly with the Genesect to shut down your opponent's safe spec. So
Yeah.
I think that combination is super strong, and it's part of the reason why we've seen Golden Go skyrocket in the early meta. The extra damage for Typhlosion with Brave Bengal now put it from like a meme deck to an actual contender. I think it suffers from like it has some really good matchups, but it has some really bad matchups, and like it still can't deal effectively with multi-price knockouts, which Gardevoir excels at, which Dragapult excels at. So one hit KOing them is great, but it's not great if you're already 2 or 3 prizes down, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big issue for the deck. But it definitely helps. It definitely helps that Golden is on the rise. So I definitely like the set. That it doesn't bring anything completely new, but it was enough of a shake-up with Jellicent, with Genesect, with Tool Scrapper, with Herballoon, that it's a breath of fresh air compared to like Shrouded Fable last year,
Yeah.
which just made Regidrago way stronger and completely warped the metagame around Reggie.
For quite a few months after that, right?
Yeah, and for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
next 6 months
yeah.
or so.
For the next 4 or 5 months here, till Badoo basically
Yeah.
came around and started to turn that off.
Mhm.
Much of last format was particularly dominated around, centered around Dragapult, obviously, but Gardevoir was kind of the one taking home the trophies. So where does Gardevoir slot in the world's discussion? Uh, Again, early days, but seems like maybe the Jellicent variant might be a little bit more underwhelming, and it might revert
Mhm.
back to that Bravey Charm. Essentially, yes, there is 2 prizers in play, but you're really a single prize attacking with
Yeah.
Drifloon and Screamtail. So, just what are your thoughts around, Gardevoir? I'm sure you've probably tested that, obviously,
Mhm.
being a competitor, but just where are you thinking we're ultimately the better Gardevoir players land? I'm sure we'll see some Jellicent EX and
Yeah.
Gardevoir decks, but where do you just think for Guardy in this format where people land?
I think like Jellicent is an extremely strong card, but I feel like Freelish is the real hero. Like Freelish is body plus.
Yeah,
It does more damage, it has more HP, and the fact that it has a high retreat cost means you can actually take advantage of powering it up, retreating into another one, and using Monkey to send that damage. So I do feel like having the option for that or the big attack with Jellicent is very strong. I also think that we can say Jellicent is underwhelming based on the results we have from online tournaments. However, I would say most Worlds players are probably not grinding online tournaments right now. They're probably being a little bit more secretive in their testing. And we did see Gardevoir Jellicent have decent success at the
yeah,
Japan National Championships, which players probably took a lot more seriously than the daily online tournaments that happen 2 or 3 times per day, right? So the online tournament scene doesn't always correlate perfectly
yeah,
to the physical playing scene, and especially for Worlds, it's probably where it's going to be or where it's going to differ the most. That's why the Goldingo hype, I think we should take with a grain of salt as well.
Mhm.
But overall, Jilton variant has seemed underwhelming. I have liked it in the fact that it's more disruptive. I feel like in the end, you're still a Gardevoir deck. Your core options with Monkey Dory and Damage Spread and whatnot and Screamtail don't change too much. You just get that extra disruption that is very nice to have, right? Like it sometimes make your Ionos a bit stronger if you have the
yeah,
Jelly active. I've definitely chosen not to power up to 160 damage with Jelly and only do 80 for future. Like that was enough for a TM Devo play or to not knock out my opponent's Pokemon to keep them trapped for an extra turn. So for a more defensive play of Gardevoir, I think it blends very well for a lot of players. And it goes with what I said in the beginning in terms of like Jellicent and Frillish slow down the game and lead to longer games. Therefore,
yeah,
more decisions have to be made and more tougher decisions under item log. So that usually favors the better players. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And I would not be surprised to see like control version types of Jellicent Gardevoir decks, which try to play like Gravity Gemstone or other resources to like
right.
really slow down an opponent and keep things trapped and just have a lot of control over what's happening.
Yeah. Appreciate the answer for Gardevoir. I'm very curious to see where the Guardy heads land for Worlds here in just over 2 weeks.
So you had mentioned Goldango real briefly there. Do you think that the hype will die down, or is there going to be a specific testing group emphasis on that jumps back on that deck in like a Mass Effect to try to increase the meta data analysis on that?
So I definitely would not be surprised to see it be played. We've seen it be played by top players before, and it is now stronger,
Mm.
right? So like just based on raw strength, Golden Goal is a great pick. You're very Iono proof, reducing the lock factor by a good percent.
Mm.
You're very aggressive, so you can steal games just based on the fact that your opponent just couldn't keep up with the early aggression. You're very consistent. So Golden Goal has all the makings of a perfect world stack, other than the fact that it has a very linear game plan, right? It's very
Yeah.
hard to deviate from or have like an alternate win condition or find an alternate attacker to buy you a couple turns or whatnot. Yeah. So Golden Go is amazing, but also very linear in that sense. So it has a lot of merit to be chosen as a world stack
Mm.
because you're very likely to be able to play the game every single round, but your opponent will also very easily be able to prepare for what you're trying to do and potentially counter it. So it's like both sides of the coin of what you don't want when your decision making differential is at the lowest, versus you just want to make sure you're playing every single game to have a chance to become world champion. So it's a
Yeah.
very interesting situation for Golden Go. I'm not leaning towards it just because of all the hype. It's a bit too linear for my taste, but I would not be surprised if a lot of players still brought it because it's just very good.
Yeah, I think like the general masses it will be there. I'm just curious if there is a and it's hard, right? It doesn't seem like we have as many known testing groups out there. Obviously, we have the Brazilian contingent. We have kind of that mega US group that formed with Chow and Bradner and Hendrick.
Yeah.
Talk about top players in the game right now.
Mhm.
And then obviously the Limitless group is kind of not out there as much. But then we obviously have the Aussies group, which know how to
Yeah.
make very good meta calls in big tournaments as well too. So my next question is Charizard EX position itself to just be a very strong Worlds contender? And then there's a second part, but I'll let you answer that part first.
I mean, I think so. If the Golden Go hype is real and it gets played by a wide amount of players at the World Championships, if Raging Bolt, I feel like Raging Bolt has that stigma of being like the easy deck to play or whatnot, but realistically, a lot of players qualified for Worlds this year playing Raging Bolt, right? So they might
Yeah,
just trust it again at the biggest stage to get them a good result. So and then you have Gardevoir, right? Which the Charizard Pidgey is one of its worst matchups. So I think it's a perfect storm for Charizard if it can get past Grimmsnarl and Dragapult, which are its toughest matchups. Which
yeah,
I think Gabriel Fernandez, he's an amazing player. He's been doing pretty well. He's a Masters. And like a lot of Masters players are getting coaching with him. A lot of Masters players are getting things off his Metafy and whatnot. And I think the level that the senior players play at right now, especially the 15-year-old
yeah,
senior, is on par with Masters, right? So I would definitely take the senior results very seriously. And the fact that he was able to win NAIC undefeated with Charizard, um, getting past, he did go 2-2 against Dragapult variants, I think, at NAIC. So it's like it's not an easy matchup, right? That's where skill differential could play a big role, or the right techs, right?
right, yeah.
But if you're confident in Grimmsnarl and Dragapult, I feel like Charizard is a fantastic choice for the World Championships.
Okay. And you kind of touched on it. So the second part was, are you more particular into the traditional build, right? The Charizard Pidgeot? Or obviously there's been a little bit of inklings of the Charizard Dusknoir, variant, the heavy ghost line. Where are your kind of thoughts of where maybe the more popular Charizard deck would be?
So I definitely prefer Pidgeot just because of the whole longer games versus shorter games, right?
Yeah.
Dusknoir and Dusk Clubs are like go big or go home very quickly. They accelerate games, and many instances, like you're giving your opponent prizes, you're also taking prizes, but then games get shorter. Whereas
Yeah.
with Charizard Pidgeot, you're taking your time, you're setting up, and then you have a potentially big turn where you go knockout plus Iono with Monkey Dory sending some damage somewhere, and you're able to like make good comebacks by slowing the game down and having access to whatever you need at the right time.
Yeah.
With Charizard Dusknoir, you don't have that possibility, right? So I do feel like I personally favor a lot more Charizard Pidgeot. However, Charizard Dusknoir definitely a very powerful deck as well.
quick search, very good ability. Imagine that searching for whatever card you need, and it seems like that archetype, or at least that archetype, you do have maybe a little bit more room to have a certain couple techs in there. It just feels like you have a little bit more room in the 60 deck space.
Yeah.
And Marnie's Grimmsnarl. Do we still feel like that's topping the charts when it comes to decks to choose for Worlds?
Yes, absolutely. Marnie's Grimmsnarl lets you be very aggressive with a quick Grimmsnarl, lets you be very passive and control-y-esque with the Frostlass, the Monkey Duries, the body slowing things down. So it gives you like both possibilities within the same deck, which I think is once again very, very strong. That being able to shift game plans in the middle, or having one and then shifting into the other, like having a lot of options to get to the end game, which is winning, makes for a very powerful deck. And I definitely think that if Piper really did drew badly at NAIC against Isaiah and whatnot, like Piper could have easily taken that tournament herself, right?
Yeah.
So, and then we would be talking about a next level Grimmsnarl hype, right? So I definitely think Grimmsnarl, very real, very powerful, one of the best decks in the format by far. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Does Miraidon still kind of have a little bit of lightning still in the bottle? Maybe more so like the traditional electric generator Arvin style Miraidon, or is Joltik Box really the superior deck because of just one, you can do stuff under item lock because you have Joltik to accelerate energy in. Does Miraidon have any more sort of? I mean, obviously we saw it get top 4 at Worlds with Jesse Parker last year. And do well very early in this part of the season. But where do we feel like with Miraidon, or is it just maybe not quite there for this tournament?
I generally think so. Like item log is definitely a factor, but you're also just trying to hit your generators on that first turn, and then probably relying on Magneton. And if they're going bud you hand them, and then that's fine.
Yeah.
So the item log, because it's not permanent, it's not there's no item log that threatens a lot of damage right now. Like even if you're slowly building up to the Iron Hands, that's fine as well. So you run good on the day, and you're hitting your generators, and you're finding 2 of them on your first turn to have an earlier Iron Hands than Joltik Box offers. You can absolutely run away with the game, especially now that you have a late game attacker in Sekram EX.
Yeah.
Joltik Box is the more reliable way to do it. Iron Hands is the go big or go home style, and Worlds is the tournament to be like, I'm feeling the generators, I'm gonna go with it, and if they hit, they hit. If not, I'll have an early day.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it almost got there for some unfortunate prizing, obviously, versus the world champion. Who knows? Maybe Miraidon does take home the trophy last year.
Yeah, and since we have you here, we're just going to keep asking you about every single deck, and maybe you'll help our listeners filter to exactly what they need to play at Worlds. Zoroark EX, is it a draw engine or is it a deck?
So I definitely think it's a deck. It's good. Gardevoir and Dragapult matchups are very enticing. You probably need to bring back Darmanitan in order to have a chance against Goldingo, or a realistic chance against Goldingo. But Goldingo now with 4 bosses orders, like they're just not gonna let you have a Darumaka in play, and you can't pop in for double Darumaka either. Which is another issue that deck has to deal with. So I feel like the rise of Goldingo and probably the rise of Typhlosion puts a big dent on the possibility of Zoroark succeeding. But you hit the Gardevoirs and the Dragapults, and you're gonna have a good time. You hit the Bolts and the Goldingos, and you're gonna have a tough time. It's not impossible, but it's gonna be a lot tougher. Yeah. So, but as a deck, I think it's gonna be it definitely is a true contender. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not just a draw engine for sure.
What do you feel like is the best Noctowl engine type deck?
The Raging Bolt. I don't understand not playing Noctowl in Raging Bolt. Like you can't go Pokegear, hope I hit, or Squawk, hope I hit, versus Noctowl, I get what I need. I'm a big fan of finding what I need when I need it. So definitely Raging Bolt. It's a world's contender for sure with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you think that Raging Bolt has the most played percentage at Worlds, or do you think because this is such a high skill ceiling event, maybe it'll be more of a skill based deck decision, I guess.
Yeah, so I've definitely heard both sides of the arguments from many people, but I feel like the emotional attachment that all of players will have, because they did well with Raging Bolt, because they qualified with Raging Bolt, and Raging Bolt still a very good deck, is definitely there. So I think in a vacuum, it should still be the number one most played deck, or number two at worst. Yeah.
Okay. This kind of goes back to the end of the episode last week that Drew and I had. We had a little bit of a debate of what is the best single prize deck that we have in format,
Mhm.
and is there any, depending of your answer, does it have any sort of legit chance of trying to maybe sniff around that top cut at late in? I guess it would be a Saturday.
I mean, generally, yes. I definitely think Typhlosion has been showing it's here to stay. The best list has not been figured out. There's Zorg, there's Pidgeot, there's Dracloak. All of those partners are all very good and have their pros and cons themselves. But you hit the Raging Bolts, you hit the Golden Goes. And I think that's another issue with Worlds, is like, you might be the best player on the day, but if you don't hit the right matchups, right? Despite, like, you can probably outplay someone in a bad match, or rather, your chance of outplaying a bad matchup at a regional or international is much higher than outplaying a bad matchup at the World Championships, where your skill differential is in theory, the lowest it should be compared to your opponents. So that's where deck selection and techs play a much bigger role, as well as luck, right? You can still beat a bad matchup if they draw bad or run out, but if they have a natural advantage and the game plays out where both players draw, uh, like on average, what they should be drawing, then you're most likely going to be losing that game, right? So I think Worlds is unfortunately a lot more matchup dependent right now than every other tournament. So if you're playing a single prize deck and you hit a good run of matchups, you're in for a good time.
Yeah, very true. Because you're just inevitably going to win the trade-off, no matter what you do for prizes.
Yeah, and as we kind of like wring you out of answers right now, you're testing for Worlds. You obviously want to do well. You're looking at your reputation and your resume when it comes to competing. You don't sell yourself short. So when you are testing for this event, which 5 decks are you expecting to see the most on the floor day one?
I mean, top 5, definitely Golden Go, Raging Bolt, Dragapult. Which version will be the most popular? I don't know, but all 3 Dragapult versions combined should be a top 5 deck. Guardian, Grimsnarl, like those are to me the very like obvious top 5 of the format. All the other decks are trying to keep up with those, or trying to have at least a 50-50 against those. So anything outside of that is like you're trying to make a meta call and maybe hoping to dodge something, or you have some very hard text to compensate for your bad matchups, I think. So if you want to play it safe, which this is probably going to be the first World Championship for a lot of players as well, despite the hard road to qualify. So a lot of players might just play it safe with one of the top 5 decks, and there's nothing wrong with playing one of the best decks in the format on the day.
Yeah, and if you know your 60 in and out, and you know the matchups, just you got to let it ride and send it, right? That's that's the fun thing about competing. I know you'd said like you hate losing, and obviously competition. I think that's where, or at least I hope, many of the players play it for the right reasons, of course. But it is competition at the end of the day, so you just got to trust yourself and go after it. So is there anything else, Worlds? Is there a deck that we left off our list? Obviously we peppered you a lot of questions. Is there any sort of grandiose thoughts that you have, or is there a certain archetype that we didn't mention that you want to put maybe on people's radars?
I mean, I feel like Crossel is also well positioned to have a good run if it hits the right matchups. I honestly, outside of that, like I just did a tier list for my channel a few days ago. There's just so many viable decks right now. Like even a tier 3 could have a good day if it hits the right matchups, right? So there's just, I don't know, so many options. Nothing stands out other than I feel like Charizard is like the potential big winner into that top 5 or 6 decks that are dominating, that should be dominating the numbers right now. So a well-tech Charizard that draws good enough, could have a deep run because it has some very good matchups in God of War and Raging Bolt and Golden Ghost. So I don't know. There's just, I mean, I wish I knew what's gonna happen. Right?
Yeah,
There's just a
obviously.
lot of
Everybody
there's
does,
also
you
so
know.
many. Yeah, there's so many unknown factors that at the end of the day you do have to trust yourself and being like, okay, I prepared as much as I could, and in the moment, it's all about the improvisation of making the best out of your hand, the matchup, the analysis that you make, and trying to account for everything that your opponent can do. You know?
Yeah. Well said. So, any plugs that you have? Obviously, you do coaching. If you want to just talk on that of maybe what's that first 1 or 2 sessions look like for players that maybe have been playing the game for a year but they're first starting to try to kind of get into that competitive circuit. And then just one how to particularly with this format, right? We joked about the sword and shield days, right, where it felt like you basically had like 3 good decks to really choose. Do I want to counter Mew today or do I just want to play Mew today? How do you particularly right now, like how do you just kind of, as you said, focus of like, okay, my head is going to spiral out of control if I just keep thinking and thinking and thinking? How because you've been such an accomplished player for so long, how do you kind of just before that tournament be like, all right, I'm going to stop worrying about what everyone else is doing and just focus on what I'm going to do and prepare. So I guess here's a little bit of a plug for a couple minutes into your coaching insight, which I know you do a lot of.
Yeah. So in general, I always try to approach coaching in terms of like I want to find a deck that you are motivated to learn and enjoy and win with, right? Because I think so many people spend so much time trying to find the right play or the right deck. And I think like for Worlds, it's a little bit different than for League Cups, League Champions, and whatnot. So it's like if you're interested in the deck and you're motivated to learn with the deck because you enjoy playing it, then you're more likely to want to learn uh, the skills needed to become a better player, right? I always tell people like I'm not here to teach you to be a good Gardevoir player or a good Golden player or a good Dragon player. I want you to be a good Pokemon TCG player. So I want you to be very good at making decisions and winning games so that the core question is how do I win, right?
Yeah.
How do I win is like the first level, and then the next level is well by taking prizes, right? So how do I take my prizes? Raging Bolt does it one way, Gardevoir does it another, Dragapult does it another. But in the end, the options change, but the end goal is the same. So I always advise to like focus on one deck in the beginning, and we're gonna get really good at the decision making so that we get you to a point where which deck you choose doesn't really matter, right? It's important to get reps in with a deck, but you're so good at the decision making and the improvisation and the analysis that you do during a turn and the options that you have that lead to a win that what the name of the options are doesn't matter, right? If you're going 2-2-2 with Raging Bolt or with Jolting Box or with Gardevoir or with Golden or whatever it is, it doesn't change the fact you want to take 2 prizes each turn, each of the next 3 turns to win a game. Yeah. So what resources do you need? How do you accomplish this? But the end goal is the same. So that's usually always what I try to like go over with. Is they're very unsure about deck choices or whatnot. I feel like so many people spend so much time trying to find the play as opposed to trying to get really good at the decisions regardless of what they're playing, right? Finding their win condition or finding a win regardless of what they're playing. And so the first session, I usually always just like ask them to show me, to share their screen, and we're playing in the ladder. And I tell them, share every thought you have right now with me so that we can find the areas of opportunity of where we can maximize our decision making and optimize our probabilities to find success, which is winning, right?
Okay.
So that's usually how the first session goes. And then if there's more, which I always try to like give like feedback on that first session in case they don't come back or whatnot, so they have something to take with them to work with later. And then future sessions, that's when now we play against each other, where hopefully I'm a much tougher opponent than the average ladder live TCG player. And we can play a specific matchup, and we still work through matchups and we still work through potential lines, right? But I think the success I've had in 25 years of playing now comes from improvisation, in the moment analysis, and readjusting and readapting my game plan to get to that goal. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's 10 different paths, but not necessarily all of them lead to that end goal or lead to it with the highest chance of success. Yeah, so that's why I like. I wouldn't call myself an expert at any deck. I'm just like, I'm very good at Pokemon and finding the intricacies and the lines within each game, rather
Yeah.
than having a pre ABC of turn one do this, turn two try to do this. Yeah, because I saw this many times, especially with Lugia, as you mentioned. Like, so many players would go after the Arceus, yeah, despite the fact that there's just a much better play. And like, go after the Minchino so you don't get KO'd. They can, sure, they get more energy in play, but then yeah, it's like, it's a very rough example, but I think a lot of players had in their head written always KO Arceus, and they would KO Arceus, and then your 4 energy Cinchino knocks out their only attacker, and that runs away with the game, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, so it's game over then. So those sort of things is what I try to get people out of, which many people who come to me are like, I keep doing these things, I understand the game, but I'm not winning enough, and that's usually what helps them break through.
Well, that was much more than a 2-minute plug for your session. So, no, like it's kind of got me jazzed up to go play in the ladder right now. So, anyone that's obviously listening, if that doesn't really sell you on Pablo's teaching skills, I don't know what will. So make sure if you do reach out to him for coaching, make sure that you heard him on the PCS podcast, because that, man, that's basically you can take that and plug that for your channel. I'm sure you have plenty of coaching opportunities, but just in case if you needed a few more. So
Thank you.
this again, we appreciate your time this evening. Go ahead and obviously plug anything, sponsors, where to find you, etc., etc. This is your plug.
Thank you. I mean, YouTube is what I do mostly. YouTube.com/Tablemon. Shout out to Poton Store, who's been there from like almost the very beginning. Full-time Tablemon. Shout out to Hyperbeam Cards, is a store in Mexico, who's also very supportive of what I do. And shout out to all the people who trust me for their coaching needs and preparing for Worlds. It's definitely very rewarding and very fun to work with them. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this Worlds. It's especially, this one is very special because last time I top 8 Worlds was at Anaheim in 2017, and this is also the 20th anniversary of my best Worlds finish. So it's like a double trouble sort of thing.
Oh, we totally forgot about that. 2005 Nidoqueen top 4. Give us the elevator speech of your run there, for maybe some people that
I mean,
don't
I was 17 years old back then. I had all the time in the world, unlike now, where I'm a 37 adult with responsibilities. I spent all summer break testing nonstop with the eventual world champion, Jeremy Myron. It was like an incredible weekend, incredible run. Everything just fell into place perfectly, other than my top 4 match, which I lost. But it was a dream weekend. I remember it vividly, and almost becoming world champion also is part of what has driven me to keep searching for the title 20 years later.
Well, we here from the PCS podcast wish you nothing but the best of luck in Anaheim, and hopefully it can rekindle some old sparks, and you make the, like I said, the right call and run hot. Shout out also to the Reggie deck. That was really awesome. Which was also one of my favorite decks that you went through. I know Drew doesn't like it, but it was a tough archetype to play against, particularly if you were trying to be a two price centric deck.
And at Worlds it was like pretty unknown. Like after that it blew up.
Yeah.
At Worlds it was a sort of meta call, unknown,
yeah,
underrepresented, underrated. Yeah,
I remember. Yeah, that the first stream match that you got on and going through, and it's just kind of like, whoa, wait, what? And then it's like, oh no, this guy actually does make sense of what the deck's functioning to do. So you've created a lot of decks over the years and a lot of favorites for mine for just being in the circuit, for 3.5 years now. So that does it for our show for the PCS podcast this evening. We do thank everyone that likes and listens to the show to help to continue growing. We have a Discord invite link in our channel, and then obviously Pablo will plug your links as well too to your socials. So that'll do everything. Best of luck in Worlds, and we'll tune in to catch everyone next week.
Thank you so much.